Superintendent, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Good evening. Tonight, we have 4 senior student athletes here to do our pledge. Pedro D'Souza is a senior from Tingsboro. He's enrolled in the medical assisting program. He's currently a member of the senior planning committee and is on the volleyball team. Joshua Torero is a senior from Lowell. He's enrolled in the automotive technology program and is a member of the volleyball team. Luis Mota is a senior from Lowell, enrolled in the plumbing program, and is a member of the basketball team. And Matthew Barboza is a senior from Lowell, enrolled in the medical assisting and member of the National Technical Honor Society, soccer team, volleyball team, and senior class planning committee. I'd like to invite Pedro, Joshua, Luis, and Matthew to come join the vice chair and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good job, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good job. Okay, you look good at Jack. Good job. No, thank you. Good job.
Yeah.
Now I read this.
Yeah. Nice job. Good job. Nice job.
Thanks.
Nice job.
That's my friend. Yeah.
Good.
In accordance with 940 Chapter CMR 10, remote participation adopted by the Lowell Technical School Committee, April 17, 2014. Committeeman LeMay will be participating at tonight's meeting remotely due to geographic distance. Roll call.
Mr. Sheehan, Mr. Moran,
Yes.
Mr. Bahu, Mr. Booton,
Here.
Mr. Tatsias,
Here.
Mr. Gigi,
Yes.
Mr. O'Hare,
Yes.
Mr. Lemay.
Mr. O'Hare, has anyone signed up for public appearance?
Nobody has signed up.
Okay, thank you. School committee communications. Just a little note to the board, to the committee. Day on the Hill coming up in Boston on Wednesday, May 1st. If you plan on attending, let Cheryl know, and she will register us. Okay. And report of the student rep.
Skills USA is preparing for the state competition, which will be held April 25th through the 27th in Marlborough. We have 86 students competing in both technical and leadership competitions, and a state office candidate, Gregory Herbert, who hopes to be elected as a Skills USA state officer. A group of students from Student Council will attend the ADL Worlds of Difference 25th Annual Youth Conference for Leaders in Action. Here, students will learn how to identify different types of prejudices that are still found in schools today. Students will participate in a number of leadership workshops that help teach them to speak up and speak out against prejudice. Our math team recently finished the New England Math Contest. Student Patrick Sexton scored the most points for our school. Over 25 kids participated in the contest. They also hosted a successful Math 24 tournament with over 30 students participating. Their next competition will be a math meet at Tri-County Regional Vocational Technical High School on May 2nd. The freshman and sophomore class committees are volunteering to assist with the Merrimack Valley Food Bank's Spring Pantry Raid April 22nd and April 27th. They are also planning an end-of-the-year trip to JG's in Methuen. The senior class is preparing for their senior week activities. Monday, June 3rd will consist of a field trip to the Apex Entertainment Center in Marlborough. Tuesday, June 4th is The Hypnotist and a field trip to Chunky Cinema in Nashua. Wednesday, June 5th, the senior breakfast will be held at Lindsay's in Dracut. The Drama Club is working hard to get ready for their performance of 10 Ways to Survive the End of the World and 14 Lines on Thursday, April 11th and Friday, April 12th at 6 o'clock in the lecture hall. Spring sports started on March 18th and saw well over 500 student athletes trying out for our various programs. Unfortunately, due to the unpredictable early spring weather, the majority of our teams have yet to play an official contest. With that said, here is the projected openers for our outdoor teams. Baseball is scheduled to open on April 10th, softball on April 9th, tennis on April 10th, and track on April 12th. The lone indoor spring sport, boys volleyball, has however opened their season by winning 2 of their first 3 games. The team will travel to Lexington and Malden this week before hosting Greater Lawrence to close out the week on April 12th. Both the boys and girls lacrosse teams each opened up their seasons on the turf at Assabet Valley Tech on April 8th. Both dropped tough contests and will look to continue to improve in the next coming weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice job.
Have a nice night.
You too.
Thank you.
Approval of the minutes for the March 21st, 2019. Mr. Gigi by Mr. Booton.
Mr. Sheehan, Mr. Moran,
Yes.
Mr. Bahu, Mr. Booton,
Yes.
Mr. Tatsias, Mr. Gigi.
Yes.
Mr. O'Hare.
Yes.
Mr. Lemay.
Yes.
Report of the treasurer. Approval of the warrants.
Motion to waive
That's
the
just,
reading.
Mr. Sheehan, Mr. Moran,
yes.
Mr. Bahu, Mr. Booton.
Yes.
Mr. Tatsias.
Yes.
Mr. Gigi.
Yes.
Mr. O'Hare.
Yes.
Mr. Lemay.
Motion to approve the expenditures for the sum of $3,249,192.66 allocated. Yes, whatever. Okay. Report of general counsel.
We need to take a,
Oh, yeah, vote. I'm sorry.
Mr. Tatsias.
Hold on the warrants.
Who seconded?
Yeah.
Mr. Sheehan, Mr. Moran,
Yes.
Mr. Bahu, Mr. Booton,
Yes.
Mr. Tatsias. Mr. Gigi.
Yes.
Mr. O'Hare.
Yes.
Mr. Lemay.
Yes.
Report of general counsel.
Just very quickly, last time I was here, I told you that I had been working with DESE regarding the amendments to the regional agreement. When I was here, you had asked me to reach out to them and let them know that as much as they could speed up that process, we would enjoy it because we do have your town meetings coming up. So I have been in communication with them. They are aware of that. They've actually asked this week for the dates of each of those meetings so that I hope that we will hear from them soon. I told them that we had a meeting tonight and said if I could get anything before then, that would be great. But I did not. So hoping next time I have a little bit more for you.
Great.
So that's the update there.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Report of the superintendent director.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. The first item on the agenda is the cooperative hockey team. As you know, we've been participating as a co-op hockey program with students from Neshoba for the past 2 seasons. Ms. Davis and Mr. White have reported to me that this has been a very beneficial agreement for us. Our students have been welcomed. We've added a number of athletes to solidify the program. Due to the success, we've had 11 participants this past winter. We've accounted for 50% of the roster. They've reported to me that they would like to move in a direction where instead of getting into a co-op, that we become more of a joint team, a variation of Neshoba Tech and Greater Lowell Hockey, combination of school colors and such, new uniforms, and have make this a permanent co-op arrangement as opposed to a typical biannual agreement. As you recall, 2 years ago, we did a 2-year agreement. I recommend, based upon Ms. Davis and Mr. White's recommendation, that we do move in this direction. There is a budget that has been assigned, which I've attached. I am able to tell you that a majority of these items that we can incorporate right away. We can also incorporate some from the athletic revolving account. Obviously, next budget season, we're going to need to incorporate this fully, especially the ice time, which is the most expensive item there. And the game jerseys will be a one-time purchase. We don't need to do that after 1 year. The game jerseys will last a few years. I want to tell you also that this has been approved by the Neshoba, school committee last week, this agreement. Mr. White's here to answer any questions you may have about this. I think it's a good thing for our students. I'd like to recommend this.
Motion to approve.
Seconded. Mr. Gigi. You second the motion?
Sure.
Roll call.
Mr. Sheehan? Mr. Moran?
Yes.
Mr. Bahu? Mr. Booton?
Yes.
Mr. Tatsias?
Yes.
Mr. Gigi?
Yes.
Mr. O'Hare?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
I'd like to ask you or the coach, is any of this stuff donated stuff? Could possibly be donated, like hockey pucks or any of that type of stuff?
Expensive stuff.
Yeah.
Now, Mark, you might be able to
Yeah, I mean,
answer that.
with donations, obviously any donations we'd always accept. Certain rules with certain things, like especially in contact sports like hockey, football, lacrosse, they have to have certain certifications on them. So you have to have like approved pucks that have like the GLTHS stamp on them, and you have to have reconditioned helmets that have to go through a reconditioning process and be improved. So donations for those type of sports are probably not as common, just for that reason, just for safety reasons more than anything, to make sure the kids have the most up-to-date stuff out there.
I didn't know if some of the, national leagues, give you a box of pucks, I don't know, practice pucks or whatever that goes.
I mean, the pucks, they, we've kind of, once you have them, they're good for a couple seasons, so you rotate through. Usually buy a couple boxes of game pucks and then just rotate the other ones down to practice each year and kind of work your way that way. So it's not a huge expenditure, typically.
Anybody else? George?
Yes, did we get a big turnout of people that want to play hockey? And secondly, is that going to interfere with some of the other programs, athletic programs that we have now?
No, we've been in a co-op, the biannual co-op agreement now dating back to 2011. We were with Tingsboro for several years, and then it became Drake for several years, and then through different circumstances, that wasn't going to happen anymore. So we moved over to Neshoba, but it's never impacted any of our other programs. And we have all of our winter programs are extremely robust. I mean, we had over 100 boys try out for basketball, over 100 girls try out. We had 100 kids out for swimming. We had about 65 out for wrestling. So we don't lack for participants. It's really just a way to offer a sport that we probably couldn't sustain on our own. So it's a good way to offer it.
Having said that, is that going to take a drain on the sports programs that you have now in the system?
No, I wouldn't anticipate that. It hasn't up to this point, so I don't see why. If we, just the reason, I guess the real motivation behind this is it ensures that we're able to offer this program for now and for the more than the foreseeable future. With the biannual co-op agreement, you always leave yourself open to that risk that if something happens, some dynamic changes, or somebody decides that, they don't want to do it anymore, you've left yourself open and then you scramble. And if we go into this type of an arrangement, it ensures that we're able to offer this program for kids for now until hopefully forever, as long as the interest is there. And right now we're almost 1-to-1 with the roster. So that's why we decided to go to this sort of a arrangement, because we had about 25 kids in the program last year and 11 were from Greater Lowell, and we have about 3 kids who have already applied at the open house nights and stuff, expressing interest that they play hockey. So that'll add 3 more to the mix next year, because I don't think we graduated any seniors from the program on our end from Greater Lowell this past year. So it could be up to as many as 14 next year.
Mr. Tatsias,
Where will they practice?
We practice at the Forum over in Chelmsford. We've had that ice the entire time we've been there. And that's where they play their home games, usually on Wednesdays and Saturdays. So they've been playing at the Forum now since we've been with Neshoba the last 2 years.
The merger of the program, the school colors,
Yep.
are they going to be Neshoba Tech and Greater Lowell who's approving the design? And
Well, we'd have to get some proofs and get some things. I mean, the school colors wise, we share a common color. They wear navy, we wear navy. It just would be the accent colors. They wear navy and like a teal blue, almost like Mr. O'Hare's shirt. And then we wear the gold, obviously. So we'd come up with some sort of combination of those three colors. And that would be the uniform colors we'd go with. And then the real tough part's going to be trying to find an acronym because a little bit of longer names, Greater Lowell, Neshoba Tech, it's a lot to put across the front of a jersey. So we got to come up with some sort of abbreviated lettering that we can put across the front because it doesn't really fit on a hockey sweater too well. That's a lot of words.
GLNB and BGL.
Yeah, it's going to be something like that. And then, so that's basically what we're looking to do.
Yeah.
I just asked one kind of a trick question though. Everybody shoots for the Markham Award. That's the highest award for.
Yeah.
So if we have students participating with one of the other schools,
Yeah.
and it's going to be a close run,
Yeah. I mean, with co-ops,
no
I mean,
answer. Is that what you're saying?
yeah, I don't really know how they would handle that on a co-op. And who gets to win percentages? I don't know.
You fight all year long or all your school lifetime, and you have an opportunity to make it, but you may not be able to make it because of.
Yeah.
very good question, George.
Thank you.
Thank you, Coach.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Number 2 on the agenda, every year per DESE requirements, we need a vote. It's a school choice program. Again, this is a customary every year, just to keep moving forward, so we need a vote on that.
I don't see that.
Motion to approve.
That's just. Roll call.
Mr. Sheehan? Mr. Moran?
Yes.
Mr. Bahu? Mr. Booton?
Yes.
Mr. Tatsias?
Yes.
Mr. Gigi?
Yes.
Mr. O'Hare?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
I don't have that.
Number 3, school committee fiscal 20 meeting dates. In an effort to avoid scheduling conflicts, we're developing now the 2019-20 school calendar. I'm asking the committee to take a glance at this, and hopefully we can get an approval so we can go forward with the regular school calendar. I want to make sure there were no conflicts here. A copy of that is in your agenda to take a look at.
Question. Mr. Secretary, Mr. Vice Chair, we have 2 members not here tonight. Have they weighed in whether it's going to be an issue for them?
No,
I don't know.
they have not waited.
No? Then I guess we can move forward. Motion to approve.
Seconded by Mr. O'Hare.
Mr. Sheehan? Mr. Moran?
Yes.
Mr. Bahu? Mr. Booton?
Yes.
Mr. Tatsias?
Yes.
Mr. Gigi?
Yes.
Mr. O'Hare?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
Up next is the March Co-op report. 193 seniors participated. It's a 2% rise over last year. We continue to make a rise in co-op. The juniors, as you know, we're in the highlight right now of the month on April where kids start going in. We're going to see a big bump over the next month for co-op in the junior class. Happy about what's happening there. So want to inform you on that. Before I get to number 5, on a lighter note, I'm sorry.
Can I ask a question about the co-op? Mr. White left, it's unfortunate. I would have asked him to some input. How many students do we have not doing co-op because they want to play sports?
Many.
Okay.
Yeah, many. I don't have a number, but that's usually, we've heard that year after year here. That is a hindrance to co-op. It is.
That's not a,
Yeah, it's
I
not.
mean,
yeah,
it's
right.
still school related. They're doing
Sure.
school sports. It's not like they have to go get a job to do it. Do we have more kids now in a situation, I guess, what's stopping co-op? Is it the fact that they don't have cars and licenses? Or is it because they're doing co-op? Do you have any idea? Are they
Cars.
equal? Are they,
No, it's cars and licenses.
that's still the number
That's still
one
the number
reason why they can't get
The
co-op?
age, right? Yeah, it's the
Okay.
age component.
Thank you very much.
On a lighter note, before I get to number 5, not on the agenda, but I want to share with you, this is maple syrup that's come out of our trees in the front, done by our environmental club. So I don't know if you saw the buckets out there in January and March, in February and March. But this, they made a bunch of it, and this is one they had given me. I wanted to share with the committee, some spoons here, so before the night's over, make sure you're able to try this. Congratulations to the environmental club.
Excellent.
Number 5, as
Excuse me.
requested. Yeah, I'm
Can I
sorry.
just add on to that? I mean, I went to the science program that you had a couple of
Science
nights
fair.
ago. And that was there, and every table had something equal to that. And it was amazing. I couldn't, and I talked to some of the kids, the students that were there, and their hopes for the future and where they want to go, you know, it could be a preschool, it could be a major university, but they all seem to have a path that they want to go on. But I was impressed what years that, next year, I think it's going to be, well, tell them about the other programs they're making in that program. I thought it was fabulous. They're going to be, they found some type of fish, dogfish, catfish,
Yeah, with the catfish farm.
and that's coming up next. Now, that will be on the menu some night here? All right, thank you.
I think so.
How many gallons?
I'm not sure, but they got about a little over 2 gallons, I think it was. It wasn't.
It's like 40 gallons to 1.
Right.
Yeah, it's
80 gallons of syrup.
So, yeah, it's amazing how that process works.
There were 3
Yeah.
trees out front. Yeah, it was pretty interesting. Number 5 on the agenda is Smart Board presentation as a request. Mike Barton is here to do a presentation on the Smart Board. As you know, we've made an incredible investment in instructional technology in the building, and a lot of it's led by the good work of Mike Barton in tying in and integrating technology into the classroom with teachers and around professional development also. So I'd like to turn it over to Mike for a few minutes to do a demonstration.
Good evening. Thank you for having me tonight. So I'm going to sit here for a while and get this set up, and then I'll head over there and I'll demonstrate the smartboard for you, and feel free to ask any questions. So as Superintendent Mastrocola said, we've done a considerable investment in smartboards in the building, not only this year, but for the last 13 years. 13 years ago, we purchased our first smartboard, and we slowly integrated them in throughout the school district. Currently, we have over 200 smartboards. They're used in all academic areas as well as the technical areas. So there's virtually no areas without this technology. This smartboard that you see here is the latest generation smartboard. 13 years ago, smartboards were a challenge to install in the building. At that time, I was responsible for that. I put about 200 smartboards in the building, and at the time, you had to have a projector like you see here, and you had to mount the smartboard against the wall. Since then, the technology has changed considerably. So what you see here is a portable smartboard that works virtually like a monitor or a television. It's on a portable stand. That smartboard can be mounted against a wall, and it's hooked up via a keyboard. It can be a remote keyboard like this with a mouse, with a remote mouse, or the keyboard can be attached. That smartboard there actually has a keyboard on the opposite side. So, let me make sure this is working correctly.
Can you see it, Curtis?
Oh, good. Okay, so first thing is a few things you can write on a smartboard. So if a teacher's doing a lesson, they can use this interactive pen, and they can identify things that they want to circle, things that they want to draw attention to, and then they can just simply erase it with their hands. So basically what we have here is we're on the internet. And the key thing that I really want to emphasize is this is connected with the students that are sitting, or it could be connected with you. So as you know, students have their mobile devices, and we have Google Chromebooks throughout our school district. So if a teacher is teaching a lesson and they want to assess or test students on certain questions, they can have the Google Chromebook in front of them, and the students can enter the answers, and you'll see the answers in real time come up on the screen. So the teacher can tell right away how students are doing in a particular lesson. So if you think back to when I was in school, when you were in school, we didn't have this technology. And if you took a test, you would wait a day, a week to get the results. Now, it's literally right in front of the teacher. So the teacher can see basically in real time, is she getting, or he or she getting her points across? Are the students understanding the lesson, or are they not? And the important thing about that is they can change their lesson and try to improve their lesson quickly. Where before, you'd wait for the answers and then you would try to improve what you taught. So that's a big part of this whole technology. A few things that I can show you with.
Mr. Barton, excuse me, I
sure.
recently, just this last week, I was down in the weld shop.
Mhm.
Spoke to Fred Hines, and he gave me a little, show on what he could do, and he had a camera type thing
Right.
off to one side.
Yep.
He could actually take a photo of his textbook and put it right up on the screen. Whatever it was he was doing, if the kids were doing a weld or the kids were doing something else.
Yeah, Mr. Hine and the metal shop were early adopters to this technology, and frankly, they really took advantage of it in very innovative ways. So if a student or Mr. Hine or Mr. Kozlowski were doing a demonstration, they can videotape that demonstration and they can record it on the screen and they can just play it back. Furthermore, as they're playing it back, they can use the interactive pen to highlight and emphasize important parts of what they're showing. So you can hook it up to a camera like you were describing. You can hook it up to a microscope. So that's valuable in science class. So yeah, that's a really good example.
Yeah, it was a good lesson plan, actually was.
You can do it in cosmetology.
And can you have a different, break that screen up into different
Right.
lessons or 2-3 things at one time?
Yep. No, they were definitely early adopters, and they used it in really the right ways in a really good way. Mr. Booten?
I was just wondering, can you pull up YouTube videos on there about how you're, checking oil, you're changing brakes, anything like that? How dynamic is this? So anything on the internet?
Yep. You can definitely do that, for sure.
One question I had, once the teacher was writing up on the screen and they take notes, say they've got like 3 or 4 bullet points up there, can they save the screen and print it for the students, or does it just have to go to one of the devices?
They can save the screen and they can message it out to students as well. So, for example, if you did some sort of lesson and you wanted to record it, you can send it out in virtually an email blast to students.
So that they would get an email blast of it to help with homework or prep or something like that, okay.
Without a doubt.
Do you ever have any students that have we had any students without phones or devices?
We certainly have students without phones, and we don't necessarily encourage using phones in the classroom, but we have the Google Chromebooks, and those are available throughout
And
the school.
they can log on to them with their email address?
For sure.
Okay.
Mr. Tatsias?
If a student was absent, could they partake of the lessons that day?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So jumping into this, we've spent, we've done a considerable investment in textbooks over the last few years. And not only do we have the physical textbook right in front of us, but we also have the textbook online. So, for example, and I'll go back to the YouTube video.
I'm fine.
But this basically right here is a science textbook that's online. So it's an environmental textbook that's online. So not only do we have the printed copy, but we also have it online, and students can get this at home. So they can get it also on their phones. They can get it on if they have a device at home. So the homework, the reading is available at home. They can get it at the public library if they wanted to as well.
Right.
So so the answer to the question is yes, they can. And as well as other lessons that a teacher records, videotapes, anything like that, they can push out as well. So really, you'll hear this as as you talk to teachers. They'll say they can't teach without this. Like if their smartboard goes down or something's it's needs in repair, and thankfully this technology is very reliable. It doesn't go down often, but it can. They're very anxious to get this thing up and running. They want it ready. They feel as though they've been hobbled. So in the last 13 years, this has really been the the best thing for kids and students, combined with the Chromebooks and combined with the online resources that we have. So just to go through, so you can see these are the chapters for this environmental science textbook that we have. So let me go to it, and you can turn the pages so you can get it at home. You can get it on your phone.
So, Mr. Barton, could I be doing that on my desktop and it coming up there? Like, I want to teach the class, so I'm sitting at a desk and it's coming up.
Absolutely. Yep. So you can sit at your desk. So I could be doing this lesson via that chair, or I can be up here and I can, like I said, emphasize certain things. I can design my whole lesson online. And
can you also spread the page out, make it bigger?
Yep, for sure you can. The other thing with this too that's really important is, so the textbook companies have realized that they can make money in a printed book, but they can also make money by improving the online content. So they give teachers and students a reason to go back to their website every day. So if you were to look at, bear with me 1 second, I just want to get back here. Okay. If you go back, okay. So if you go to this every day, you'll see that there's new content and new lessons on. So this is an English lesson that shows basically what is a claim. And every day this can change. A lot of it will remain the same, but if you go back frequently or weekly or daily, you'll see that there's new content. So it's constantly bringing teachers back to these resources. Where again, when we were growing up, when I grew up, it's the textbook and that was it. The textbook was kind of static. It didn't change. So this gives you a whole lesson associated with different topics, which is really the heart of publishing these days and the heart of the resources that we're trying to take advantage of here. Yes?
Does the technology allow, if a student is actually flipping through the pages, and how long they're spending on each page, or the number of keystrokes to see if the student's zoning out on you? Or it's kind of interesting. You might be able to use this as immediate feedback. If a student's not really paying attention in class, you might ask them a question.
Right.
Is that technology available now?
In some software, it actually is. And a lot of so the school, we've taken advantage of a lot of different online software. In some software, you can actually get down to the level of how long is the student on, how long did they spend on certain questions, pretty granular like you're describing. Other software, it's more just how long did they log on. You don't get a sense of where they went, sites they went to, questions they tried to answer or not answer. So it depends on different software and different things. So it's just one example of this. So this is just again an English lesson. The other aspect of things I just wanted to share with you is you can also invite students up to the board, and they can basically work at the board. So you can have multiple students working the board at once. And that's a big thing. Students want to be up and moving, or active, rather than just sort of sitting. So when this turns on, I'm going to show you a really basic lesson in geography, but it's a lesson that not everyone in America might know. I studied geography in school, so I'm a big geographer.
But you studied everything.
No, no, yeah. My wife would say that.
Mm.
So basically, students can come up. This is something that can be used from kindergarten all the way up to college, and you basically put the states in where they belong.
Oh, yeah, good.
But, and this is a very basic example, but there's many, many more advanced things that you can do with technology like this. So for example, I was in a science class the other day, and they were putting together the parts of your throat. So all of the parts of your throat were being assembled with this type of technology. So students can come up and they can do that. So if you want to come up, you can put the states. Anybody want to try?
I'm all set.
Nobody wants to.
You can place Texas.
Yeah. That one's easy.
Yeah, put Texas.
Well, there you go. Maybe Massachusetts.
Ooh, I got
Oregon's up
Massachusetts.
top. It must be down below, man.
Oregon.
Interesting.
Washington
is-
State, yeah.
So really, it's a basic example, but it gives you a sense of what you can do with this type of technology. I think that's-
It could be a food book, and they could
Could
be
be.
putting different things on the plate, stuff like that.
Exactly. Yep, I've seen things like dissection of frogs. You've seen parts of the throat. You've seen, doing different parts of mechanics for physics.
You were saying welding.
Is that?
They do welding. You were saying they
Welding
do
as well,
welding too.
right. And
Very dynamic.
the other interesting thing about this too is there are lessons that teachers develop throughout the country, or actually probably even throughout the world, and they can post them, and you can take advantage of them.
Let me ask you a couple of questions. I worked for a company, I worked for a telephone company at one time. They were experimenting and worked out very well. This is in the primitive days of the computer and also the visuals that you see. And New York City is a lot different than some of the rural areas in New York. And they're not getting the same, teaching value because of, where they live. They were working, and if I remember right, an eraser separated, who was going to get the call, and if you lost the brush or whatever it was and it fell off, you could never use it again, or you couldn't use it until you found something else. But my point is that there were more opportunities in the main cities where they had all sorts of money and they had all sorts of students there. And in the rural areas, they didn't have as much, and they didn't have as much of the intelligentsia that they should have, like everybody else did. Therefore, they used this method, the primary type method of this, in their location. Now, the whole point was, that at the time, they were trying to cut the number of teachers down, because if you're going to teach in Section A, which could be the big rural area where everybody is working, versus Section C, which doesn't have the money, and they're not getting the same quality of education. Did anything like that ever come before you, or did you ever hear of anything like that before?
About cutting teachers based
Not
on
basically
technology.
cutting teaching, yeah, giving the same, well, let me rephrase that. Giving the same opportunities for the students that were in the bigger areas, those that could afford a lot of services, versus those rural areas that didn't have that money.
So I think what this does is, because the technology is out there on the internet, it is available for people that a lot of this is free. And a lot of this is, the smartboard is obviously not free, and the Google Chromebooks are not free, but a lot of the software actually is available. So you can acquire it without cost. So therefore, school districts that don't have as many resources as others, teachers can acquire it. I think that's one of the pluses that sort of the internet has brought with us, and this technology and the software. Because before, you were limited to the textbook, and some school districts could afford them and others couldn't. This You're not, as we all know, we're very fortunate in the school. We're very lucky in the school because we have these tech resources. Not all school districts do. Some school districts, they share smart boards, and that's why they're on rolling carts. Yes.
Are most of the students coming in and they're technologically savvy with computers and this kind of technology, or are we finding a disparity between some of the students that are probably less fortunate, where they're not as in tune with the technology or don't have the same opportunities? And then what does the school here do to bring that student to the same level?
So there is some there is some disparity in students and their technology ability based on their resources at home. That's for sure.
Okay.
So we have a foundational course called CTR, which encompasses one of the technology strands. So some of the resources that are basic, such as Microsoft Word and other basic technology principles, are introduced there. So that's one way of mitigating that. The other way is the fact that we have many Google Chromebooks that are used in the classroom. So students that are not used to being on a computer, they're typing more, they're on the computer more, their exposure to technology and their exposure to computers is much greater than it ever has been.
Okay.
So that's...
Because I think that's important, because I do think there could be that disparity, and that's a little scary and intimidating for somebody who's never seen this, and all of a sudden now you're getting it in high school.
Correct. And the other thing too is that not everybody has a computer at home. Especially, computers are very expensive, and students have devices, and what's happening is students are comfortable with their phones, but they may not be comfortable with a computer because not a lot of people have computers at home anymore.
Mr. Barton, I know on our school website we can change the language. Do some of these things have that option?
Yep. Some of the software that we have for different websites are available in different languages, and some are not. And then Google Translate's available for a lot of different sites, and students will tell me sometimes it's accurate, sometimes it's not.
Well, even in a textbook, there's errors.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
They've printed thousands of books, and you're doing something and you see an error.
Sure.
Anybody else have a question?
Thanks,
I
Mike.
just want to make a comment. I do a lot of continuing education for my my licenses that I have, and this is very similar to what it is. It's online. It's similar to this. It's interactive. So I think this is helping for our kids to set up going forward. Our students to, when they get into the real world, they're going to have to keep learning, and this is what we're doing now for continuing ed. In many respects, the online.
I think you're right. I think what you'll find is people's, like you said, their recertifications, their education, their professional learning is done on these platforms.
Great. Thank you very much.
Look at forms of travel, automobiles and stuff, what we have to do.
Right.
It was an excellent choice. This particular one, it shows that I could see the students wouldn't be, as most students aren't too interested in geography. It's just like doing a puzzle.
Right.
And
I can see where
Like my
our
favorite
interest,
subject,
this
and
type
nobody
of thing.
teaches it anymore.
yeah,
So the student could come in and say, we're gonna go from Dracut to Manhattan. Purposely, he could
Yep.
say where he wanted to go then, huh?
Well, you're right. And the interesting thing is, because I have 3 children of my own, and whenever we travel, I'll say, okay, we're going to map this out. And my daughters are more interested. We're on camera here, but my daughters are more interested than my son. But you can, like you said, you can call up Google Maps and say, we're going to take a trip from one end of Lowell to the other, or from Tingsboro over to Dunstable, what have you. And there's, as you know, when you go on Google Maps, I think you'll see different routes. You can use this very interactively to determine why you would go certain ways. And all of that is sort of high order thinking that our students need, for sure. So that's one thing you can use with this.
Sounds good, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's going to bug me leaving it up like that, but maybe George and I can fix it
later
after
on,
we're done, after the meeting. I will. Oh, yeah.
You
George,
think
we'll
you can
finish that.
find your way home later?
Thank you very much, Mike.
Thank you very much.
Report of the business
Mark,
manager.
report of the business manager. It's just with the- It's just for co-op.
Oops. Good evening. The first item I have before you is a report on a FY 2018 audit. I have a representative here from their senior partner, Cheryl Stevensberg from Melanson Heath. She's been here before. Cheryl, if you'd like to join us here. And I'll let her give you an update.
Thank you. Thank you, George, and your staff for your assistance during the audit process. It went very well. We have a clean audit opinion that says that we believe your financial statements are materially fairly stated in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. There were no material audit adjustments, and there are no significant deficiencies or material weaknesses or management letter comments related to the financial statement audit. I do see that you have the bound copies of the reports, and I just wanted to point out a few of the highlights. FY 2018 for governmental entities was a big year because there was an implementation of another GASB, Governmental Accounting Standards Board, pronouncement that significantly impacts a couple of the pages in the financial statements, and it's important for school committees and boards to understand that impact because it makes things look a little bit negative, and if you have questions from your communities that you're able to explain that. So the page that I'm talking about, I call it the GASB page. That's page 11, the statement of net position. So if you recall, in past years, GASB's been putting all of these long-term liabilities. Sorry, the thicker of the two books is the audited financial statements, and I'm on page 11. So GASB's been requiring on this page in the financial statements some long-term liabilities to be put included in the financial statements. One that was implemented a few years ago is called the net pension liability. You guys got that? Page 11? Okay. And if you're on page 11, the net pension liability relates to your proportionate share of the unfunded liability on the Middlesex County Contributory Retirement System. So if you go on their website, you can see their report and you can see the portion of the unfunded liability that gets reported on your financial statements. And at June 30, 2018, it was $15,614,520. In fiscal year 2018, there's a new GASB called GASB 75 that was required to be reported. It relates to the other post-employment benefits, and what those are the benefits that you offer your retirees, specifically health insurance. There's an unfunded liability that exists as a result of offering those benefits to your retirees. You hire an actuary to calculate that using various assumptions and discount rates, healthcare cost trend rates. In the past, a portion of that liability has been recorded on your financial statements. That was under the old standards. The new standards required that the entire amount of the unfunded liability be put on this page of the financials. And at June 30, 2018, that net OPEB liability was $72,937,266. And again, kind of an alarming number. It makes your equity section, which is the net position section down at the bottom of the page, look very negative. If you're reporting your financial statements in compliance with this standard, everybody has these liabilities on the books. They're not new. They're nothing that you have to budget for or fund or anything like that. They've always been out there, just that the reporting standards is now having you report them on this page. So that's kind of, very important. A lot of people will open, and the first numbers page that they see is this negative there. But all governmental entities have this situation. The other pages, and these are the pages that I'm indicating, talking about the independent auditor's report being a clean audit opinion. These pages and these things that I'm highlighting are really kind of key indicators or highlights. The bond rating agencies, this is where their first stop is, on the opinion page, looking at your statement of net position, and then also on page 13, which is the fund basis balance sheet. So you have a general fund column, capital projects fund, which is pretty much in the winding down stages, and then non-major governmental funds, which represent your grants and revolving funds. Key indicators that users of the financial statements look at is primarily in the fund balance section in the general fund column. That unassigned line number, the 2,104,202, that is a key indicator for users of the financial statements. So that is what is commonly referred to in mass school districts as the E&D. It's really the E&D starting point. There are sometimes some differences between what ends up getting certified in that number. That's a real key indicator. At June 30, 2018, that was at about 4% of your budget, which is a decent number. As you know, 5% is the limit in Massachusetts. But you certainly wouldn't want to have a number like in the 1% range because that's going to negatively impact your bond rating. Other things to look at in that same section, the fund balance section, your capital projects fund. You see that there's a small deficit of $14,223. Probably at this point, you're pretty close to wrapping that up, and that's going to go away. And then if there were any other negatives on that unassigned line, that's a real key indicator there. Questions? So other pages, page 15, this is the income statement on the fund-based specific accounting. So you have the third line up from the bottom, the change in fund balance in the general fund, positive 525,795. Doesn't always, if it's in the negative, it doesn't always mean a bad thing. It can sometimes be a result of utilization of fund balance or E&D to offset your assessments. But in your case, it's a positive balance, so that's a good indicator. And then also on page 17, the general fund budget versus actual page, the variance column on the far right, specifically, the very bottom number, positive 755,475. So that's a key indicator. How well did you do in comparison to your general fund budget? And you did well. You took in primarily that number is a result of taking in more revenues than budgeted at about 706, and then underspending appropriations at about 48,000. So that's a key indicator. Beyond that, pages 18 through 20 represent the proprietary funds, and these are reported separately. It's labeled internal service fund. What that is your self-insured dental fund. So those are those 3 pages. And then beyond that, you have on page 21 your fiduciary funds. New this year is the other post-employment benefits trust fund with $200,000 in it. I neglected to say when we were looking at that ugly page of the statement of net position that one thing that the bond rating agencies do look favorably upon is that you've established a trust fund. Regardless of the dollar amount that's in there and the outstanding liability, it just shows that you're aware that there's a liability out there and you're starting to take steps related to it. Private purpose trust funds or scholarship funds, and agency funds represent your student activity funds. So beyond the fiduciary funds are many pages of footnote disclosure, and really the GASB 68, the net pension liability, and the new GASB 75 for the net OPEB liability are really consuming the footnote disclosures. All of that information comes from either the retirement system itself or the report that you get from your actuary.
Any suggestions as an auditor on how to deal with that $15 million or $72 million problem going forward? Because we have taken as a board here the opportunity to start funding the account. But is there some suggestions at what level? Or is it like you step back, it's a big number. We're never going to get there in my lifetime on this board. What do you have some suggestions for us?
Your hands are tied a little bit, especially with a regional school district. I mean, you look at the participating towns, and oftentimes they're very early stages of funding the OPEB liability as well, and it's difficult for regional school districts, vocational school districts to also fund. I think you're taking the steps that are really needed. But it really, GASB 68, excuse me, and 75, especially for OPEB, is a real eye-opener, I think. Maybe the GASB did, at first the accountants and auditors were like, what are they doing? They're just making these financial statements. But it really does explain that there's commitments out there beyond the date of the financial statements that have, they have an implication going forward. And, you know, our firm does work in different states, and in Massachusetts, typically, the districts fund a portion of those retirement benefits for the OPEB, for the other post-employment. Other states, the retirees pay 100%. And so these numbers can fluctuate quite a bit.
Because sometimes, sometimes it's too big to fail.
Yeah.
Just like the foreclosure and the banking industry and the auto industry. We stick our head in the sand at that point, government will come in and take care of it for us. We could use the money somewhere else. And so I'm kind of trying to find a balance.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, certainly, I see your point completely, and I think everybody, that's looking at governmental financials is doing the same. Do we put away this money, or do we address this software program,
That's
which
excellent.
is fantastic? I mean, I just thought that was amazing, and it would be such a benefit to your students. So it's a very good question.
Thank you.
Other deliverables as part of our engagement, we have a separate single audit report. That's our report on your compliance with the federal requirements related to your federal grants. You had about $2.7 million in federal funds that you expended in 2018. Two programs were looked at: the Child Nutrition Cluster, so that's the school lunch program, and also the Title I program. The Title I program had no findings for compliance. There were some findings related to the Child Nutrition Cluster, and we've worked with George to address those going forward. I mentioned earlier that key indicators, oftentimes outsiders will ask if you have management letter comments, and so there aren't any of those. So that's
What was the name of it?
management letter.
Okay.
Management letter. So management letter recommendations. A lot of times, the state certainly asks us for it. We send your reports out, but they asked if a management letter was issued. And that would be a report if there were any internal control deficiencies or findings, not major noncompliance with laws or regulations or anything like that.
If I can ask, you did find some non-compliance in the program. I think I read 1 out of 40.
Yes.
That's less than 2.5%. I mean, we've got a 97.5, that's A+.
Right.
But that's not good enough, or is that because one got through?
That is a statistical sample size, and the reporting requirements under the auditing standards, even though it seems like a very small number, say that needs to be reported.
Okay. So it's not a major,
It's not a major, out of 40, you had one that ended up being incorrect. So I would say that it's relatively minor.
can I ask the question? So trying to read through this was a little tough. Help me to understand, is it that we had one person doing this and this requires 2 or 3 people to sign off on it? Is that
That's
what I gathered?
I think you do understand the gist of the recommendations. Basically, in accounting, with respect to internal controls, there should always be 2 people involved, always, for everything. When you're doing cash receipts, when you have disbursements, 2 people approving, when you're doing journal entries in the general ledger, 1 person initiating, another person approving, so there's checks and balances. And the same is true with federal compliance guidelines. So if you have an individual that's reviewing the free and reduced lunch applications and makes a determination based on the information they've been provided with, there should always be a second person involved to check that. People make mistakes, and so that you do get a sense that you understand that.
I just want to back up to my other question with the OPEB account. And correct me if I'm wrong, because I could be wrong. If we fund the account, we can also take that money back if we needed it for something in the future. And how is that looked upon?
You cannot take it back, even though it's reported on your financial statements. It's kind of off your books. It's in a trust fund. You cannot take it back. It's not like a transfer from revolving funds or anything like that. It's in a trust.
Wait a minute, that's not what we were told. I thought we could use it, if next year we found hard times, we could transfer that money to pay for the OPEB.
You can use it
Funds
for
for
that.
next year.
Correct,
Well, that's
right.
my.
Yeah,
So it's a
sorry
different
if
part
I
of
didn't
the
understand
fund.
that. Yes,
I
you
didn't
can use
phrase
it for
it
you can use it for the other post-employment benefits, but that's it.
So we could use it?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, and
And
how
then-
would that be reviewed or reflected if we wanted to go for some type of financing or bond in the future?
Sorry. How is it if you tapped into it?
If we had to use it
Yeah.
to shift it over to another.
I don't think it would have a negative effect. I mean, you have the trust fund established, you're funding it. I mean, perhaps if you really ran into hard times, you know, and had to use it for other post-employment benefits, certainly I think if you depleted the fund, it might get questioned. You know, if you depleted it significantly, it might get looked at. But, you know, the key indicators are the E&D balance, the budget versus actual, the fact that you have the trust fund, you know, is just a step in the right direction.
Sorry to digress.
Nope, that's fine.
Thanks.
Anybody else?
I just had one question. Mr. Gigi, are you saying that they're gonna do means testing on the schools? And if we have a significant amount of money in our OPEB, we may not get as much as somebody else that doesn't have any?
Just a thought.
I think it's a good thought. Thank you. I just wanted to get that out.
Thank you.
I agree with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Awesome job.
Thank you. Good to see you.
See you next year.
What's this one?
That is tough work. Amazing.
Can I go?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I have one more item, and it's on the topic of OPEB, since we were hitting it. I just want to give you an update. As part of our board, which the committee has approved 8 members, by law, 2 of them have to be, one from voted by the retirees, and one has to be voted on by active employees. So we did the balloting back in January, February. The employee that was selected was Cheryl Bomo, and the retiree selected to serve on the board was Manny Manalopoulos. And at this point, we're down to final 2 positions. One is a position to be voted on by the school committee, and the other position is to be selected by the superintendent. I don't know if what your position is for tonight on this matter.
Curtis, do you have anybody you want to nominate?
If it's permissible, I would like to submit the name of Paul Moran.
He's the retiree.
Paul's you want already as a retiree, Paul?
No, he could do it.
No, Manny is the retiree.
Okay.
As a school board.
Be a vote.
Okay.
So Curtis is recommending Paul. We need a second.
Kempton.
Sure.
Yeah, I'll do it.
Yeah, me.
It's excellent.
Not me do it. Me second.
Good choice.
Just so we're clear, Mr. Warren.
Okay.
Roll call. Can I vote?
You can vote for yourself.
Yeah.
All right.
Mr. Sheehan, Mr. Moran.
Yes.
Mr. Bahu, Mr. Booton.
Yes.
Mr. Tatsias.
Yes.
Mr. Gigi.
Yes.
Mr. O'Hare.
Yes.
Mr. Lemay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'll do a good job.
Mr. Garavini,
Vested interest.
does the committee need a vote on my choice or no?
It doesn't
Okay,
specify, it just says
okay.
appointed by the superintendent.
You took my choice anyway, but
Also says must select a citizen resident. Did we do that?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
who he will select. Has to be a resident and a citizen
Yep.
of the district. Very good. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's something you didn't have with old business.
Okay.
Old business? Any old business?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Just the last meeting that we had, we talked about the Athletic Hall of Fame. And we tabled it again till this meeting here. But this is really getting out of hand at this particular time because this has been an outstanding item for a few years now. And for some reason, there's no action that's taking place. We did that as a courtesy to the superintendent at the time. And we want to do something with that, let's move on it. Let's not wait 5 years or 6 years before we get into the primary part of this, message that we're trying to deliver. So if, I would like to act on this right now. You know, we've got so many, we've got other boards that have come in and set up their structures without even thinking of the Athletic Hall of Fame. And it's been sitting there and being bypassed because we'll wait for the future. And if, for those of you who don't know what this is, the school has always recognized outstanding athletes, etc., and have put a plaque, or it doesn't even have to be to the Athletic Hall of Fame. We can go back and talk about the Hall of Fame that we were going to build with the Superintendent Collins's photo right up as you're walking into the school. Whoops, excuse me, Mr. Microphone.
I thought that was the superintendent's wall.
Right.
You're jumping the gun here.
Well, yes, but the concept is the same. You know, that the Collins situation, yes, it is the superintendent's, but there's no action been taken on that for a long period of time. For various reasons, I guess, maybe there was a minor role of friction involved here, et cetera, but I think it's time that we move on these things and get them done. We did have something that was done within the past couple of years, and that was downstairs in the new cafeteria. That is separate and distinct of what we had planned in the.
Mr. O'Hare, I believe the superintendent is going to answer your question.
I was gonna go with a few other things too, but go ahead, Mr.
Yeah,
Hess.
thank you, Mr. O'Hare. Yeah, you know, the last meeting you had mentioned this, and I mentioned to the committee I was going to look into some solutions to that because I do think it needs to move forward. I've been in touch, one thought process, I've been in touch with the foundation, the Greater Lowell Education Foundation, and I broached this with a few of the members about them incorporating this into their decision-making process, taking over the fundraiser for raising the money for the Athletic Hall of Fame. They'd like to put it on their agenda as one of the items to discuss. I think this is a good opportunity to get this ball rolling the way it needs to get rolling. They're very active on that. They would want to do that. And from my experience in some other school districts, the Hall of Fame, most of the time, are really taken by the foundation because they have the fundraising ability to do that. That may be an option. You need to approve that, Mr. O'Hare. You have to feel good about that. But that may be an option to get this off the ground fairly sooner than later. And if it's okay with you and the committee, I can write a letter to the foundation saying, yes, I think it should be on your agenda. It should be something that you can talk about taking and running with. So,
Yes, if I may, I'm on the board of the agenda, on that group also. However, does that mean that we're taking money away from scholarships, et cetera, versus I don't know the answer, but the others seem to be very simple. And let me just give you something quick. As students who were great athletes at this school, many of them, not all, but many of them received plaques or whatever, and they're mounted on the ramp going into the gym. Okay, that area is pretty filled right now, and there is some room on the back side of that where it used to be where they served the fields. Since that time, and we got some commitments that yes, we will be doing something with that. Now that's about 5 years ago. I don't really think they did their job the way they wanted to, because if you walked in that area, you'll find where they keep the mops and everything else. There's all innovative ways that you can do something. This is for the students now. This isn't for the foundation. The foundation raises money to get kids into college or help in their careers.
We understand.
All right? Excuse me?
I understand
all right.
clearly,
So-
and I also
so that-
think that for 40 years, where are you going to put all these plaques? You know what I mean?
Well, you don't. There's different ways. Maybe once you reach the age of X number, maybe we'll start a new panel. But the others there's all different reasons why others didn't go up. There's still space there. If you're telling me that we don't, because of the space limitation, I don't think that's correct.
No, I'm not at all.
All right. I thought I heard you were saying that.
I'd like to move along.
Right, but I'm not ready to move. I think we should move on on this here, which has probably been in this book for 4 years. All right, it's either fish or cut bait. All right, if you don't want to do it, you just tell us don't want to do it. Now, having said that, I'm not specifically pointing you out.
Me want to do
I'm
it.
not specifically saying you, but I mean, kids have done things. Every school has something similar to this. Some of the old trophies, they're older than Methuselah. But I think there's work that could be done, and I would like to see that we take action on, to start with, this particular one first. Item number 2.
Consider it done.
Okay, and when you say consider it done, more than that, meeting with the superintendent, et cetera, will set up those people that want to be part of the initiation of where these go, or what is going to be done based on what we've already approved. Incidentally, some of those we, the school committee, paid ourselves. It wasn't the school system. But I'm making an assumption, and I'm not going to make an assumption, but at the end of this, we'll take a vote that we move on with this.
All right. Okay, Judge. New business?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'd like to ask the superintendent relative to the foundation. You said you were going to send a letter. Could you inform the committee, or at least the chair, relative to when that will be submitted and as to when that meeting will take place? I'd probably like to attend, and maybe Mr. O'Hare would like to accompany me.
Sure, I can put that in play tomorrow.
Not a problem.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lemay.
You.
Okay. All set. New business? Nothing? Mr. Booton?
I guess I got my information in a little late to the, I think I sent it in on Wednesday.
Thursday.
Was it Thursday? Anyways, I wanted to ask the question. Well, I can still ask the question. I was hoping to get some information on our October 1st number, our wait list by town, where we're at, so we can.
Yeah,
I think I didn't get it in time to get it as a motion, but it doesn't need to be a motion.
Yeah, I produced it already, so it's in front of you. Sorry for the small text. The first number is the October 1st number. Active is April 10th. You can see the numbers there. The second page is all active.
Sorry, where's the April 1st numbers at the bottom of the 2195?
That's it, yeah.
So we're gonna be down about 50 students?
From the beginning, from the beginning of school year,
Okay.
from October 1.
I'm sorry, is this an April 10th number?
It's the April 10th number,
Also, the October was 2252?
2258.
2258, okay.
Yeah. Second page is the wait list as requested.
Thank you.
Excuse me, the second page was by town and city, students by city and town. I broke that up. I
Okay.
don't think that was requested, but I gave it to you anyway.
Thank you, no.
So you can see by city and town. And then the last page is the incoming, not the incoming, the
Wait list?
active wait list with incoming freshmen. These are new freshmen we just had now. Be noted that many of those freshmen, probably some of those freshmen are going to be included now, because kids are going to, even though they've been accepted, will say, I'm not going to come to the school. There'll be a high amount of that, somewhere in the range. Last year, the year before, was about 150 from the initial acceptance letters. So some of those kids will be included back, but we still have rolling admissions also, so some kids are still applying.
So there's only 245 kids on the wait list right now?
Right now, April 10th.
That is phenomenal, that's great. Do we know how many kids are on our current wait list for freshmen this year?
The number's there. That's the number, 194.
That's not next year's list?
That's for August.
219,
This coming
220.
September.
Right.
As of today, though, how many kids are on our wait list that would want to come in as freshmen,
That will be the sophomore class.
right?
So it's a 1? 1. Sorry, wait a second. I'm looking at the wrong sheet. So that would be the sophomore class, which is not, I didn't break it up into sophomore. I didn't break it up by class.
Okay.
I just have the larger
I'll
list
check
by
in with
city
you
and town.
back, but this is great information. And I'm glad our number is down to 245, taking those extra students really helped.
Yeah.
Good.
So the other pages I just included in there, I should have gave you all this paper, but the House came in yesterday with their number, House Ways and Means. It's, for us, it's plus about 98,000.
Okay.
So that's over the governor's budget. We'll see what the Senate does. Senate usually goes higher than the House. So as you know, we'll back with you in May, give you an update, and probably in June, we might have to make a vote, obviously, to adjust the budget if we get more money. And we'll do that like we did last year, so.
Did they do anything, the superintendent, did they do anything on transportation?
They did transportations, the House is funded at 80%.
Okay.
That's up about, obviously, about 8%.
Okay.
That will be an assessment that comes off a plus for the towns, cities and towns. So that's a good thing.
The per pupil jump too, right?
That's included in that 97.
Oh, okay.
The number's included in there. So, we expected that. We've been saying that since day one, that the House is going to be higher, Senate's going to probably be higher than that. So all in all, good news.
All right.
Thank you for that, Mr. Booton.
Thank you.
Committee persons' motions, no motions. Approval, the report of the subcommittees, approval of the minutes of March 5th. Finance Subcommittee meeting vote. Mr. Booton and Mr. Gigi.
Mr. Sheehan, Mr. Moran?
Yes.
Mr. Bahu, Mr. Booton?
Yes.
Mr. Tatsias?
Yes.
Mr. Gigi?
Yes.
Mr. O'Hare?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
Yes.
Motion to adjourn. Mr. Lemay. Mr. Lemay.
Yep, and seconded by Mr. O'Hare.
Okay. There
Mr.
it-
Sheehan, Mr. Moran?
Yes.
Mr. Bahu, Mr. Booton?
Yes.
Mr. Tatsias? Mr. Gigi?
Yes.
Mr. O'Hare?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Vice Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Lemay.